The clock struck 12:17 a.m. when Sarah Morgan closed the last tab on her laptop and rubbed her tired eyes. Another day had slipped by. Another long, lonely evening in a house that once echoed with laughter and late-night arguments, now filled only with silence and memory. The hallway light buzzed faintly as she passed Eli's room, pausing out of habit. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. Eli had trouble sleeping lately. Sometimes he spoke in his sleep, whispered names she didn't know, or laughed in a way that didn't feel like her son. She didn't want to disturb him. But tonight something compelled her. A nudge of mother's intuition. A chill that traveled down her spine. She slowly opened the door. Eli lay asleep on his side, arms wrapped around his teddy bear, mouth slightly open. His golden brown hair was messy and his blanket half kicked off as usual. Sarah smiled faintly and walked in to tuck him in properly. She leaned over, adjusted the blanket, and felt something hard beneath the pillow. She paused, gently lifted the pillow. A folded note, clean paper, no crumples, no signs of a child's drawing or scribble. This wasn't Eli's. She opened it. "Don't worry, I'll take good care of him when you're not home." Like before, her throat tightened. She blinked again. Her fingers trembled. The ink was dark blue, the handwriting jagged yet oddly familiar. Then she saw it, the slight upward slant at the end of the K, the signature loop in the lowercase g. This was Daniel's handwriting. Daniel, her ex-husband, dead 7 months ago. When the dead write letters. The floor felt colder under her feet as she backed out of the room. Her eyes didn't leave the paper. Her breath came in shallow bursts. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe Eli had found one of Daniel's old notebooks and copied something. But no, this note was fresh. The ink hadn't even faded. And the message, how could a 9-year-old come up with that? Her hands shook as she held the paper to the hallway light. No smudges, no signs of age. She hurried to her bedroom and pulled out Daniel's old diary from the dresser drawer. She'd kept it hidden, not for sentiment, but for Eli, in case he ever wanted to know his father when he grew up. She flipped through the diary. Every curve of every letter matched. The slanted R, the crooked T, even the way Daniel overcrossed his H. This wasn't a copy. This was written by him. But Daniel had been cremated. She'd attended his funeral. She'd seen the car, crumpled like paper, where his body was found after it plunged off the bypass. She'd buried this part of her life. Or so she thought. Was he ever dead? The next day, Sarah couldn't focus at work. Her hands hovered over her keyboard, but her eyes kept drifting to the copy of the note now hidden in her purse. She'd made sure Eli never saw her take it. She didn't want to scare him, not yet. By noon, she was deep into old emails, messages, anything from Daniel's last few weeks. But something strange emerged. The autopsy report had never been sent to her. In fact, no one had confirmed visually identifying the body. All she had was a police report and an urn. Suddenly, the words of her neighbor from months ago returned like a ghost. "Are you sure it was him, Sarah? I always thought it was odd they didn't do a viewing." At the time, she'd brushed it off. Trauma had clouded everything. Now, doubt was beginning to take root. She emailed the coroner's office, asked for a certified copy of the autopsy and ID confirmation. The reply came within hours. No autopsy conducted. Body deemed unidentifiable due to burns. Identification based solely on wallet and clothing found near scene. Her skin crawled. Anyone could have planted Daniel's wallet there, anyone. Including Daniel. Eyes behind the glass. That evening, Sarah returned home earlier than usual. She walked past the garden on her way inside, then stopped. The motion sensor light at the edge of the garden flicked on. Nobody was there, but the curtain in Eli's room moved. She rushed inside. Eli was at the kitchen table sipping juice. "Did you go upstairs?" she asked. He shook his head. "Who moved your curtain?" He blinked. "Oh, maybe it was the man." Her heart stopped. "What man?" "The man who stands in the garden sometimes. He watches me through the window. He waves when I see him." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Eli, and when did this start?" 2 weeks ago. But he said not to tell. He said it's a game like hide and seek." Her hands gripped the kitchen counter. 2 weeks ago was around the time she started hearing things in the night. The sound of creaking floors, taps turning on, whispers through the vent. Now she knew this wasn't a haunting. This was human. Sarah stood in the kitchen long after the note slipped from her hand. It lay on the table like a curse, daring her to believe the impossible. The tea she had boiled now sat cold, untouched. Her rational mind whispered explanations. Maybe Eli had found an old note. Maybe he was copying handwriting. Maybe it was a sick prank from a schoolmate. But none of that explained how Daniel's exact handwriting ended up under their son's pillow. Or that sentence, like before. Before what? That night she barely slept. The note was now locked in her drawer, but the words looped in her mind like a haunting lullaby. When dawn broke, Sarah did something she hadn't done in months. She opened Daniel's old journal. It was kept in a wooden box tucked away in her closet, along with his wedding ring and the wristwatch he'd been wearing the night he died. The journal had his scribbles, to-do lists, random ideas for his novel, and handwriting that matched the letter perfectly. Tears welled up. "You're gone, Daniel. This isn't funny," she whispered to the silence. Later that afternoon, while Eli was playing with Lego blocks in the living room, Sarah stepped outside to water the garden. She hadn't been out back in a while. The grass had grown a little wild. Eli's old swing creaked softly in the breeze. The garden window, the one that overlooked the back of the house, had always been Daniel's favorite view. He used to write for hours, sipping coffee and watching Eli play. Sarah stopped watering. The garden window had a fingerprint smudged on the inside. That was odd. She always cleaned it weekly, and she hadn't been in that room in days. She walked back inside and up the stairs toward Daniel's old study, a room that had remained untouched since his death. She hesitated before turning the handle. It creaked open slowly. Dust floated in sunbeams. The typewriter still sat by the window. The desk lamp dead. Books lined the shelves in perfect order. She moved to the window and examined the glass. The fingerprint was real, large, smudged, fresh. Then she noticed something else. A piece of paper half fed into the typewriter. It hadn't been there before. She pulled it out, trembling. You shouldn't have read it. Some notes are meant to stay hidden. She staggered back. Her breath caught in her throat. This was not Eli's doing. Someone was in the house, or had been. She scanned the room. Floorboards untouched, shelves undisturbed. But something had shifted, not physically. Psychologically, spiritually. There was a presence here. But that evening she sat Eli down. "Sweetheart, do you ever see someone in the house when I'm not around?" Eli paused, looked at his Lego, then said without blinking, "Daddy." Sarah's heart dropped. "Eli, Daddy's gone, remember?" He nodded calmly. "But he comes when you're sad. He talks to me when I can't sleep." Her hands trembled. What does he say?" "He says to keep secrets, and never tell Mommy about the girl in the mirror." The girl in the mirror. Sarah's skin crawled. She looked around. Every mirror in the house now felt like an eye. She tried to breathe, to reason, to dismiss it as a child's imagination. But then, that night, as she passed the hallway mirror, she swore she saw a flicker of movement behind her. But when she turned, nothing, just silence. And her own reflection, smiling when she wasn't. Sarah avoided mirrors for days. She'd covered the large hallway one with an old blanket, removed the one in her bedroom, and even told Eli not to look too long into his bathroom mirror. But that night, a Friday, the veil between reality and madness felt thinner than usual. Eli had fallen asleep holding her hand. The little boy was restless, murmuring in his sleep. Words she couldn't quite make out. She crept out of his room and tiptoed to the hallway. The blanket she had hung over the mirror was folded neatly on the floor. The mirror stared back at her, except she wasn't alone. Behind her reflection, a figure stood in the hallway. But when she turned, there was no one there. Yet the mirror kept showing it. It wasn't Daniel. It was a girl, barefoot, pale, with soaking wet hair falling over her face. Her head tilted slowly, as if observing Sarah with eerie amusement. Then her lips moved in the reflection. "He promised me he'd stay, but he lied. Just like he lied to you." Sarah screamed and stumbled back. She smashed the mirror with a vase. Glass shattered everywhere, and the girl vanished. But something fell out from behind the mirror frame. A photo, faded old. A photo of Daniel, younger in his early 20s, holding a girl that looked eerily like the one in the mirror. Written on the back, Yilin, 2009. My secret that should have stayed buried. About them that night, Sarah opened Daniel's archived emails. She searched the name Yilin. There was one result, a single email unsent. Never finished. I should have told you about Yilin. She wasn't just a mistake, she never left. She said if I broke the promise, she'd... The email stopped there. Sarah's heart pounded. The next day, Sarah visited Daniel's mother. She had avoided her since the funeral. Guilt, grief, all of it. But now she needed answers. "What do you know about a girl named Yilin?" she asked. His mother went pale. "That name, where did you hear it?" "She was someone Daniel knew in China, wasn't she?" His mother hesitated, then finally whispered, "She died. But not properly. Your husband, he was involved. And he brought something back with him." Sarah drove home in silence, knuckles white on the wheel. That night, as she tucked Eli in, he whispered, "She's angry now. 'Cause you found out." "Who, sweetheart?" "The girl in the mirror. She said you stole her family." And then, just before Eli drifted off to sleep, he said something that made her blood run cold. "She told me, next time it's Mummy's turn." Sarah couldn't sleep. The house, once silent, now breathed like a living thing. Every creak, every whisper of wind outside felt intentional, like someone was watching, listening. But what haunted her more than the sounds was Eli's voice, calm and innocent, saying, "Next time it's Mummy's turn." Sarah opened Daniel's old travel bag, still untouched since his last overseas trip. Hidden beneath worn shirts and a half-empty bottle of cologne was a red leather notebook. Her hands shook as she opened it. First page, Chinese characters. She couldn't read them. Second page, a drawing. A girl, long dark hair, bare feet, mirror behind her, blood dripping from her hands. And Daniel, drawn beside her, face scratched out violently. And the last page was worse. "I thought I could leave her behind." But she was never just a girl. She was part of the house her family died in. And when I said I loved her, she believed me. She said if I ever loved someone else, she'd find her, and she'd stay. Sarah slammed the notebook shut. Yilin wasn't just a memory. She was a spirit born of love, betrayal, and rage. And now she was here, living in every mirror, whispering to her son, waiting for the right time. When she grabbed Eli and drove to her sister's house. No explanation, just fear. But that night, even away from home, Eli drew something that broke her heart. A picture of their old hallway mirror. And in the center, a girl standing behind Sarah, holding Eli's hand. And when Sarah asked him, "Is this me?" he nodded. "And this girl?" he whispered. "She said I'll be safer with her, yeah, when you're gone." The final twist came at 3:07 a.m. The CCTV camera at her house sent a motion alert. Sarah clicked it open. In the footage, a girl, barefoot, walking out of her front door, carrying something in her arms. It was the blanket Sarah had covered the mirror with. But there was no one in the house. No doors opened, no windows broken. Just that girl, and the sound of a mirror cracking in the hallway. Some promises don't die with the person. They wait for someone new to love.